What's the good word, y'all? DKB here. So we know in recent weeks the Packers may be a little bit more disingenuous about the trade situation with Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets than what Joe Douglas has been to them, verbally and openly expressing that he's not looking in the direction of other quarterback opportunities in the interest of securing Aaron Rodgers in a trade, but as mentioned from Green Bay's side, we've had recent inquiries, at least in the rumor mill out there, about the Tennessee Titans being involved. And the team that's a more scary and potentially legit option in the San Francisco 49ers. So what should the New York Jets do about this? Now, obviously, Joe Douglas is still working away at the Aaron Rodgers trade. We've heard the recent news from Kalai Campbell regarding Aaron Rodgers trying to lobby him to the New York Jets. So everybody's still operating essentially as if Aaron will be in New York. But if things go south somehow, maybe the 49ers are able to apply some pressure to this situation, which is already a little bit volatile. The New York Jets need an escape plan. And taking a look at how free agency planned out, how things may potentially move in the draft, it doesn't look great in terms of being able to secure yourself a option you're 100% confident in, right? So what's the deal for us? Well, there's a potential situation out there where we can at least give ourselves some high selling options. We have right now in the Jets quarterback room Tim Boyle, who's basically going to be an off-season scheme installation quarterback for us. I'll be surprised if he makes it to a certain degree, but that'll probably be contingent on how the team feels about Chris Traveler, who also is one of our other players in the room. I'm essentially looking at him as a camp arm just to make sure that we can get enough passes thrown around to these wide receivers. And then Zach Wilson, who is quote unquote quarterback of the future still, hashtag question mark next to his name. So nothing that you feel extremely great about, minus Zach Wilson. And again, opinions are everywhere on him and his ability to potentially reach any semblance of a starting quarterback in the NFL. But speaking of the 49ers, maybe the New York Jets and Robert Saleh can make some calls and tap into the well to see if they can bring over an option like Trey Lance. Now, there's two different scenarios. I've seen more recently a quarterback for quarterback swap via Paul Eston that basically said, they're both in a crappy situation. Let's let them get fresh starts in different areas. But I actually like the idea of maybe going out and trying to acquire Trey Lance a little bit better than doing a quarterback for quarterback swap. Zach Wilson will be staying within somewhat of the same system, basically just different flavor under Nathaniel Hackett. And then Trey Lance is coming directly from, the mother tree under Kyle Shanahan's tutelage. But he's faced some adversity between, sitting behind Jimmy Garoppolo his rookie year and then his sophomore season, being being susceptible to injury. And then, of course, his junior year as well, right? So, when we look at Trey Lance, the idea of bringing him in, which, by the way, for people that kept tabs on kind of my draft thoughts when we were looking at Zach Wilson, Trey Lance was a guy that I always wanted to begin with. I thought in terms of the high ceiling, the traits, the character, the attributes that we were going to look for, I felt like he had everything that we may presently want as well as develop over the course of the future if we were going to do a trial by fire approach. He just kind of had a better track record, of course. Zach Wilson was more so a flash of the pan. You like the arm talent, the pro day, obviously did a lot for him. So either way, the 49ers situation is deteriorated for Trey Lance, with Brock Purdy essentially becoming the new expected quarterback of the future for that franchise. And from what I've been seeing, everybody from the front office on up has essentially made mention of the same thing, right? You don't hold trade inquiries for a number one pick, or at least a round one pick, I should say, in the draft without feeling like things have worked out much better for you with Brock Purdy at the helm. So They're in an interesting bind, though. They bring over Sam Darnold. Trey Lance will be recovering from ankle surgery, two of them actually. And then they have Brock Purdy, who, of course, had the UCL elbow injury, and he may not be ready for the entire season, right? There's a lot of complexities with what can happen with this elbow. But if the Packers ultimately want to play, hardball here, taking a look at Trey Lance could be a really interesting situation for the New York Jets, where at least if this Aaron Rodgers trade falls through, you can go out there and potentially spend your 2023 picks, figure out what, combination, if it takes that, of picks in 2024 and 2025 you want to give to take a shot on Trey Lance. And then you end up with two round one quarterbacks from the same draft class that a lot of people would have had input on. Obviously, Robert Saleh would get a close ear from Kyle Shanahan and company about, what they truly think about Trey Lance during his tenure so far. And, you roll the dice with that. I mean, at present, if you slot in Trey Lance, it's going to be right up there with Zach Wilson, if not already above him, just based on Zach Wilson's recent performances and, the whole recency bias conversation. So you stack up Trey Lance, you have Zach Wilson still trying to develop behind him. Obviously not as ideal as having an Aaron Rodgers, but at least you ultimately have a much more worthy quarterback competition that you can roll out. And the fallback options for us don't necessarily look great. So we'll dive into that in a minute. But, ultimately, and I would love to dive into a bunch of stats and all of those kind of things when it comes to Trey Lance. But I mean, the man has only been able to play in 8 games over the last 2 seasons. And, the results haven't been spectacular in any facet or viewpoint that you can look at. But I mean, there's glimpses of what his ability was able to do. I've seen a lot of the talk during the preseason. But again, we've kind of been through the same thing with Zach Wilson ourselves. It wasn't until later on we found out that a lot of players had concerns about Zach Wilson's performance. But prior to that, during the preseason, we were hearing nothing but good news. So, kudos to the media team, I suppose, and Robert Saleh be able to put a cap on that. But, I mean, ultimately, Trey Lance already has a third of the touchdowns that Zach Wilson has been able to put up in his career, a 5 touchdown to 3 interception ratio. There's not a whole lot else to talk about. He's had some pretty bad completion percentage numbers in and of itself as well. But he has not had to grow up in this trial by fire experience like Zach Wilson has had to do in and of itself. So, I mean, I think, again, we're in a much better situation. I love the coaching staff that we've been able to place into this building. We've talked about Nathaniel Hackett, his ability to create wide receiver friendly game plans. I love Zach Azani and what he did in Denver with that wide receiver room. So you hope that translates very well here. A lot of weapons. The 49ers have been built around defense. The Jets are operating the same way, but I feel like we potentially definitely have a stronger offensive team set for him. So we should realistically be seeing the best version of whatever these quarterbacks could produce right now between the starters and the depth that we had. And again, much better quarterback situation here. But to get into those fallback options, I mean, right now, at the top of the list, you're looking at Lamar Jackson. And my only issue there that I'll lead with, based off previous discussions, is the fact that there's no guarantees with him, right? Even if you go out there, you get a deal together, you give him a full guarantee, let's just throw that out there, and you're willing to sacrifice the 2 first-round picks, the Ravens can always swoop in last minute and say, thanks for doing the heavy lifting, but we'll go ahead and match this. So it's not really worth pouring a lot of time into it, I would imagine there. And then it's a huge drop off, right? The next best option is probably going to be a guy like Carson Wentz. Not a player that's going to excite many people after, the last 2 years. You look at his ceiling being what he did to lead his team to the Super Bowl before Nick Foles actually completed the job. And then Matt Ryan, the way he flamed out in Indianapolis, I wouldn't want him in the building. Plus, he's not going to be a great scheme fit. He's basically Joe Flacco, but probably aging just about as well as Joe Flacco did, if we're being honest. And then the panic button option, which would be a rookie quarterback in this draft class. Do you go and trade up if somebody is slipping? Do you go and try to find a way to get to number 2 or number 3 and get the second or third best option depending on who goes first? Or do you take a shot on somebody maybe like a Hendon Hooker, which his draft value is all over the place. So could be in the first round, could be as late as the fourth or fifth round. Questions galore. So this at least gives us another option. And, for people that did either like or love that particular draft class, being able to, take a shot between Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, it's not the worst case situation. I would still say those combination of players are probably going to be better than what we can get from a Carson Wentz or a Matt Ryan, to be honest. So I don't know. It's a Hail Mary kind of throw to give us something different to consider here. Fingers are going to be crossed, knocking on wood, that we still definitely end up acquiring Aaron Rodgers. But again, Packers have been, at least from what we've been getting from the rumor mill, things have been getting a little bit chaotic on that side. Match that up with the rumors that the Jets and the Packers haven't necessarily spoken a whole lot, if any, in the last couple weeks. Anyways, we'll see what happens. What are we at now? 6-7 days away from the draft kicking off. Things will get interesting by day 2 for sure if we don't hear anything. So either way, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Bringing Trey Lance into the building to try to force at least a respectable enough quarterback competition. If we can't get Aaron Rodgers in the building, it's it's a struggle to even get those words to come out of my mouth. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are with it, and I'll catch you again. Peace.